Steve Wiideman, he's
I can't believe you got my name right. That's so amazing. You know how often that happens.
I am the Steve advocate here at Stukent. I make sure everyone knows Wiideman. We get it right.
I don't even, like, some of the team members don't even get my name right sometimes. This is amazing. Thank you. Made my day. So, the fun joke around it is that everyone asks, "Hey, do you have 2 I's in your last name?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah. Doesn't everyone have 2 I's?"
That's
family
right.
joke, right? This one way to always make it easy to remember.
Awesome. So for those that don't know Steve, he is of Wiideman Consulting Group. He is a scientist and practitioner of local and e-commerce search engine optimization and paid search advertising. He's also one of the authors of Stukent's SEO Strategy and Skills courseware. He's played a personal role in the inbound success of brands that include Disney, Linksys, Belkin, Public Storage, Honda, Skechers, Applebee's, IHOP, and many more. And Steve also serves as an adjunct professor at UCSD and CSUF. And so we're thrilled to have him here. Obviously, his resume and experience speaks for itself. Now we're going to turn the time over to Steve to take us through what he's got on inbound marketing and SEO.
Thank you. And there's not nearly enough time to really cover everything that we possibly can for this. So if you want to dive deeper, if you want to know a little bit more about anything that we talk about today, aside from, of course, the courseware that you can go through, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Or if you're struggling with a specific course or something, please reach out. I'm here for you. Well, let me share my screen over here. Looks like I'm already good to go. So as mentioned, I've been doing this for quite a while, 24 years, in fact. I do hail from my corporate days at Disney Parks and Resorts, managing Disneyland and Adventures by Disney. So I'm definitely a nerd at all things inbound marketing. My favorite quote, right? In terms of analytics, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so many times we see our students, we see our peers go out and do some things. We do social media, we do things, but we don't have a plan. So it's not a surprise to me when I was watching the social media session that the poll resulted in most people wanting a calendar. They want a plan. They want to know, what they can expect. They want to plan ahead and be able to fully understand what their job is, when they're going to do it, and what the results should be. So in this session, we're going to talk about ways that you can measure inbound marketing, and we'll talk through some things that we mentioned within the course as well. But this is going to be very driven toward search marketing in particular. So let's roll through it, and we'll talk about search. So how long does it take to rank in Google? You get this question if you're in digital. You get this question more than probably any other question. I want to be #1 for the word credit card or mortgage broker. How long is it going to take me to be #1 in Google? And oftentimes it's hard to answer that. The cliche for us in the SEO industry is it depends. We always answer with it depends, and it's annoying and people don't want to hear it. So you don't have to answer it depends. You could use this model as a way to sort of explain it to a client. It's the long run, it's the marathon, it's not a sprint. And the way that we talk about it is, hey, if we've addressed from a content standpoint everything that a user is searching for, then we've sort of solved problem 1 of 3. When somebody says, how come I'm not ranking in Google for this keyword? My first question is, well, which page on your website are you trying to rank? And they're like, I don't know, I just want my website to show up. No, you need a specific page on your website to address that non-brand search term that somebody searched for. If they search for you by name, most likely your homepage is going to come up. But if they search without your name, including a product or service that you offer, then they're going to land on that product or service page. So content is going to be #1. And there's so many things that we can do to address content, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So that's part 1. That'll get us to page 2. Hey, we got to page 2 of Google. Our content did it, but we need to be on page 1 because page 2 is the freaking graveyard. Nobody goes to page 2 unless you're doing, research or working on a big school project that you need to dive into 8 pages of Google to find answers. But if you're looking for more lower funnel to purchase, to buy, to sign up for something, normally that first page is where you're going to find it. So what's next? Well, we think about how search engines use a link graph and how search engines crawl through links through the internet to access and find your content. And then they score your content based on the quality of the links and the pages that are linking to. In other words, the more high quality links you get to your website and to your specific pages, the higher the search engines are going to rank you in the results, particularly if those links come from pages that are relevant to you, pages that would send referral traffic as well, pages that would earn links themselves. So links will get us to page 1, maybe 6 months down the road. So 3 months in, we're on page 2, 6 months, we've made it to page 1. If we're lucky, right? If the keyword isn't super competitive. If it is, double that. Say 6 months, to get to page 2, and then 12 months perhaps to get to page 1. Next is going to be user behavior signals. So we've proven to the users that we've got a page that satisfies what they search for. And we've proven to the search engines that we're qualified to rank by getting links to our pages. Now we need to prove to the search engines that we're the best result. And how do we do that? We do that by trying to influence search behavior signals. That means when there's 10 listings in the results, yours shouldn't be the one with just a blue link and black text below it. Yours should be the one with all those great other features around it, such as FAQs, such as video and image thumbnails, such as star ratings. Your titles will invoke things like call to actions, buy, purchase, order, shop, download, sign up. It'll include a value proposition, so they'll want to click on your listing. And maybe in some industries, you can get really creative and put emojis and funny things into the actual results to get it to stand out. I've seen things as simple as trademark symbols that make your listing stand out. Instead of it just being a sentence, there's a little symbol that stands out in the results. So that user behavior signal, we'll call it the click and stay effect, will be what moves us from the end of page 1 to the top of page 1 over the course of, again, 6 to 12 months, or for competitive keywords, as much as 2 years. Is there value in doing that? Well, if you look at some search terms, I've seen some like with Skechers where people are looking for kids shoes, over 135,000 searches a month. For Applebee's, wings near me, delivery near me, breakfast delivery near me. For IHOP, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people a month searching for those terms. And if you're not at the top of the search results, you're not going to be getting those clicks. And if you're not using those user behavior signals, you're not going to get it. So there's the answer. For SEO, now for pay-per-click, when you're doing paid advertising, you can see results as soon as tomorrow. But for pay-per-click, this is a good way to sort of explain it to somebody who asks. Let's keep moving on. And I will answer questions at the end too, I promise. And remember, search engines are not just databases. They're not just a big listing of what's in their system. It is algorithms and patterns and artificial intelligence engines. There's so many things going on behind the scenes that we do talk about quite a few of them in the courseware, but for the sake of simplicity, let's think about patterns. And the way we hold our team accountable to the success of our SEO is by looking back at the past month and saying, did we improve the quality and helpfulness of our content compared to the other results that appear for the words that we want to appear for? Did we improve how visible we are off our website? And maybe not just links, maybe it's making sure that we're collaborating with other brands and getting mentioned so that people are searching for us by name. And how did we do in terms of improving our click-through rates in the search results? Some of the tools we'll talk about in a minute give you a way to sort of look through the window and look through the eyes of the search engines to see how people are actually clicking and engaging with your search result. So it isn't a set it, forget it. It isn't a one-time thing. It's something that we set a foundation for in the beginning, in the first 30, 60, 90 days. And then the rest of the life of that business is going to be spent nurturing quality content improvements, off-page visibility, and of course, user behavior signals. And that, in essence, is SEO or the organic side of inbound marketing. Let's keep moving along. All right, so here's our goals. We want to know what to track. We want to know what tools to use. Let me close this little window. I can't see my screen. You can reopen it in a bit too if you want to. We definitely want to look at some of the tools that we use here at Wiideman, what some of the students are using in some of the classes I'm teaching at UC San Diego and Cal State Fullerton. I'm going to give you some templates that you can play around with and build off of and draw inspiration from. And of course, you have my contact info. So if you want to throw something by me, if you want to give me a big challenge. I solved a really big challenge for a site the other day that had 2 sites that used to rank in the top of the search results, and they were trying to troubleshoot why one of them started to get omitted from the results. And it turned out a competitor was doing something a little bit shady that knocked him out. Fortunately, we were able to solve the problem and everything's back to normal. All right, so what are we going to track? Here's where we have to decide what our key performance indicators are. What are our KPIs going to be? And that's somewhat of a business decision, but as a digital marketer, there are some basic things that we are going to track. So for me, beyond just metrics, I might look at technical SEO as specific KPIs. I might charge my web developers with the ongoing improvement of the page speed of my website, the accessibility scores. Maybe I have a multi-language website and I want to make sure that my international scores are well and healthy. I'm going to look at security and privacy, all of those things that play a role in whether users trust our page or whether search engines might scrutinize our page because it might violate their searchers' privacy or security. So technical SEO are definitely a number of factors that I would hold the team accountable for. The off-page side. So now we're looking at a few different areas. I mentioned links before. Off-page is super important. It's still core to Google's algorithm, right? They use this page rank system developed by Larry Page back in 1998, and it hasn't gone anywhere. They're still using page rank. So every month we want to ask the off-page team, the digital PR team, the social media teams, hey, what have we done in the last 30 days to improve the quality and the quantity and the velocity of the links that are coming into our website? Are we linked to everywhere our competitors are? Where it matters. Maybe we'll do a pivot table once we've understood and done our research about where the industry gets their links from. We'll start there and work our way back. Hey, are there broken links coming into our website? Let's go to our analytics and go to content and filter into all the page titles that say not found. And if there's anything in there, let's redirect those pages to their best corresponding page that the search engine doesn't discount that link, but instead gives us full credit and helps us move things up. We recovered over 300 links for IHOP just a couple months ago from old pages that went away that weren't redirected. We recovered nearly 5,000 links overnight to a Veterans Day page on the Applebee's website because thousands of websites were linking to this promo, and the promo went away and forward 15 different versions of that URL. So we created a permanent URL, redirected all those broken links to the one, and recovered 5,000 links overnight. Lots of cool things that you can do. So holding that team accountable to improving quality, quantity, and velocity of those links is important, as well as reviews and mentions that play a role in Google Maps rankings. So rankings, of course, is something, unfortunately, that a lot of clients will obsess about. We need to make sure as SEOs, as digital marketers, that we set expectations with our clients. Don't get them in the mode of saying, hey, check it out, we're number 3 today or number 5 today, because then they're going to start looking at the results every day. And if they move down one position, they're going to call and bug you. And that's not fair, because you're going to look at the results and say, you know what, 2 months ago, you were getting 500 visits to your website, and now you're getting 1,200, and you've tripled your leads from organic search. And you're calling to yell at me because you've moved down one position for a search term when Google's changing their search results every day. So don't condition your clients to obsess over rankings, but it's still a great way for you at a high level to sort of get a preview of how you're doing in terms of growth. And we do that at scale. So for, say, IHOP, we might create a segment called delivery, and we'll see how delivery is performing across all the locations. So if a stakeholder asks, hey, how am I ranking right now if I search for, I don't know, breakfast delivery near me? We can say, well, across 1,600 locations, we're averaging in around position 6. Great. That's a good metric to follow. But to say this specific keyword and this specific page and this specific rank isn't a fair measure of search. So please be careful in doing that. Some of the tools that we'll use, we'll talk about more in a minute, but that's something you definitely want to use as a KPI. Is our average position improving, both for lower funnel and upper funnel content? And the last part, probably the most important to the client, the bottom line metrics. I want to know, is my traffic and my revenue improving? That's all they really care about. Or if you can't track revenue because maybe you're doing lead generation or something else, then you might track just traffic and leads and, of course, lead quality. Let's keep moving. Social media KPIs. I'm not going to beat this one up. You've already talked quite a bit about social, but here's some things that we track when we look at social media and inbound marketing in general is engagement rate. Is our engagement rate improving? Again, end of the month, let's look back the last 30 days, ask the team, hey team, were you able to increase engagement? Word clouds are great because it allows you to see what people are saying and collect all that information. Different tools are available to kind of play with this, or you can just manually copy and paste some of that feedback, put it into a Google Doc, and then organize it, and then do your own little word cloud. And in doing that, you get some really cool things out of it. You get sentiment. How are people talking about us? Is it positive, negative? Is the vibe that is happening in conversations a positive one, or is it political or something crazy? And all sorts of juicy keywords that you can apply toward your landing pages. If people are saying, I really love this and this and this and this, and you're like, wow, I never thought about that. Let's put that in our titles and descriptions that people see in Google, so they want to click on us more because we've solved their end need, not just the keyword they were querying. The followership, of course, is important. So you want to know, hey, am I growing my audience? And then those results. And from an organic standpoint, social media really, for the most part, isn't in an ecosystem to drive revenue. It's to build your audience and to expand your reach. So when you do promote content, there's a higher likelihood of somebody wanting to link to it. But we also can use paid search. If we see something performing really well, and on the organic side, and we're like, wow, this is really working well. It's getting a lot of engagement and response rates. Let's kick it up a notch and do a boosted post. Let's use this as one of our promoted posts, and then have a call to action at the end to do something. So lots of cool things that you can do to go from an organic post and expand it to paid. Let's keep rolling. So these are all different things, again, that you can measure. So here are the tools, and there are just tens of thousands of tools coming out every day. Which are the ones that are going to be best for you? A lot of trial and error. I can tell you the things that have worked well for us and for some of the students that we've had in our classes. Let's roll through them. The Basic Toolkit. So this is it. This is the free kind of, anyone can use these tools and should be using them, at least to bounce off basic metrics. Number one is that Google Search Console. If you're at SEO or in digital marketing and you're not using Google Search Console, I don't know what to tell you. It's a free tool. Google tells you all sorts of interesting things about your website, both in terms of what people are actually clicking on, what percentage are clicking on them when your listing is seen, as well as looking at some specific technical issues such as broken links. Maybe you've submitted a list of pages through what they call an XML sitemap, and they've realized, hey, you know what? 20% of these links that you've given us, these URLs, are broken, or they're not responding. You can go, oh no, my pages aren't going to get crawled and indexed and show up in search results. I better fix that. You create a task, assign it to the webmaster, and boom. Our team here, when we're looking at our client sites, look at this at least once or twice a week. Monday morning, we get up, we look at all of our Google Search Consoles for errors, warnings. I wish they just send you an alert, but they don't. So you're going to want to go in there. The alerts happen sometimes with structured markup issues, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But yeah, Search Console for sure. Bing Webmaster Tools is also really interesting with all sorts of different tools that Search Console doesn't offer. But we know Bing is less than 10% of our traffic. So the metrics and some of those types of insights aren't going to be as helpful as Google Search Console, but the tools are phenomenal, and Bing's trying really hard to build relationships with webmasters. So if you've got suggestions and things you want to see, they'll actually respond and hopefully queue it up as a product enhancement. All free tools. Again, more free tools around speed. There's a few out here you can look at. So you'll have this presentation after to goof around, but GT metrics, web page test. You can even right click and go to Chrome developer tools and run Lighthouse right in line on your browser. The accessibility tool I like to use is called the Wave Evaluation Tool. Another free extension for Chrome, and it's really, really easy to use. You just click the little icon, and it gives you a big list of what things to work on and improve for accessibility. And remember, there's not a direct tie-in when it comes to SEO and inbound marketing, a direct tie-in to having accessibility best practices and ranking higher. Google's not going to crawl through your site and say, hey, this site has accessibility issues, I'm not going to rank it. But instead, what's going to happen is a user who has accessibility issues is going to click your listing, not have a good experience, go back to Google, choose a different result, and that will signal the search engines over time that your listing wasn't as helpful. So at some point, we hope they will use accessibility as a ranking signal. But again, it's not fair to all websites, particularly those that have really rich media, because that's the type of content people are looking for. On the security side, we like to use SSL Labs. There's Geekflare, Digicert, all sorts of free tools that you could use to test technical SEO. So the big suites, right? The all-in-one platforms that you could use to do a lot of this this work in one place. Here are some of my favorites. So for enterprise, if you are working with a larger brand, or if your student decides, hey, I'm going to jump right into a job at Disney, kind of like I did 2 years after I graduated, these are some tools that you can introduce as potential enterprise options if you're working with a company that hasn't really been doing a lot of search engine optimization. Conductor Searchlight and Bright Edge, Search Metrics. The way I kind of describe the two I use the most often, like Search Metrics and Conductor. Search Metrics is like Play-Doh. It gives you the Play-Doh and you kind of build it into what you want. Conductor is more like Legos. Everything's already kind of organized for you. You just have to put the building blocks together to make it work. So it's kind of set up for you out the gate. One thing I do like about Search Metrics a little bit more in some cases is the fact that Search Metrics goes back to contains historical keyword volume data, where Conductor starts tracking the moment you start tracking. Here's what you're most likely going to be using more often than not, because these are the more affordable tools that we use SEMrush right now at an enterprise level, and we have a few clients that are on Conductor Searchlight as well. But SEMrush is still kind of the industry standard. They're one of the biggest and most used, I think. Ahrefs is trying their best to keep up and to introduce a new suite of tools that can compare to what SEMrush has. And then if you're a small agency, you might use something like Agency Analytics, which does a lot of that grunt work for you and organizes your projects as an agency, as opposed to just being a one-off tool. So those are the big suites, and they offer everything from technical analysis and keyword research and content structuring to off-page visibility and even a little bit of social media as well. Keyword rankings. So this is one thing I look for in those suites. How does the keyword ranking work? Is it enabled so that I can actually segment my content? In this screenshot, you can see we've got a drop down of a brand. You've got the number of competitors and keywords that we're tracking over here. Number 3, you can see where we've got our competitors, and we're filtering in specifically to breakfast delivery as a tag for the keywords that we've grouped for that content segment. So when a stakeholder says, how are we ranking for breakfast delivery? I can tell them, hey, right now, your average position is 11. Oh, actually, in this case, it's not. We're looking at share of voice. But I can actually toggle over to average position and say, we're 6 right now, or we're 4 right now. And we can also get our share of voice, because that's important. You don't want to know just how you're doing. You want to know how you're doing compared to the competition. So SEMrush and other tools will allow you to share what your share of voice is and set a KPI goal of that. Hey, our share of voice for breakfast delivery is 11%. Let's set a goal that by the end of the year that we've got 15% of the share of voice, and we knock Denny's and Cracker Barrel out, right? Next is link earning opportunities. That's part 2 of the 3-part principles of what we do for SEO. One of my favorite tools is an Ahref, and it's called this link intersect tool. I can put in 10 of my competitors and then throw my own site in as a site I don't want to be included in the data. And it's going to give me a list of all the links my competitors earned that I haven't earned yet. And then I can take that, assign it to somebody on the PR side or digital PR side or even social media, and say, hey, let's go after these links. This is where our competitors are getting links, and this is where we should go as well. Here are some of the crawl tools that you could use to understand a lot more about what's going on in your own website. DeepCrawl and OnCrawl. Right now we're using Right. DeepCrawl is kind of the industry standard, but I haven't heard such great things about them lately. I don't know if they've had a change and whatever, but all of these are worthwhile looking at. Our favorite at the moment is Right, and it crawls through your website. They're not cheap tools, but you don't have to use them forever. You could work out a deal and say, we just want to run a crawl once every 6 months, and most of the time they'll let you do that. Good enough tools. So these are ones that are super quick and can still give you a lot of data that you can export to Excel and play around with. Screaming Frog, it's on everyone's computer. If you're an SEO, you have Screaming Frog. A lot of folks are moving to Sitebulb as well and having both in some cases. And then there's an online tool called Siteliner where you can just buy enough credits for what you need and then move on. It'll crawl your website, tell you about errors and problems that search engines might be having, and getting to accessing and understanding your content. So on the strategy side of SEO, we're going to look at specific areas: technical, off-page, and content. Sound familiar? That's exactly what those principles are. It's really around making sure our content is there, it's helpful, it exists for specific queries, and that we're getting visibility off our site. A technical SEO plan. And by the way, look at the bottom right-hand corner down here, and you can download our current templates. So feel free. And these are the same templates we use with some of these enterprise brands, and we're evolving them all the time. So please enjoy, use them, make them your own, ask questions, replace the videos with your own if you'd like to. These are the same templates I've been sharing with the students for several years, and this gives you a framework. The first thing you do when you get a website project is let's do an audit and figure out where the pain points are and prioritize them, and knock out as much as we can of technical SEO before we move to content. Next one is competitive insights. There's nothing worse than going to your client and saying, check out how amazing we're doing. And they say, hey, these numbers look really good. Where did we start? And you're like, oh, I didn't actually create a baseline. Well, where were our competitors when we started? I don't know. I didn't look at them either. So creating a baseline gives you a way to run a Delta report and see how you've been doing since you started. And so there's that one, the competitive analysis that you can use. I like to use it especially with our multi-location brands. So we'll look at, like say Skechers or Applebee's at the location level to see how our locations are performing and what are the attributes that are being used. Are we utilizing all of the amenities that we could, and directions and custom images? What's the competitor doing that we're not doing? This allows you to make some observations, draw some inferences, and create some action items based on your weaknesses and your competitor's strengths. Link audit and strategy. So this is looking at the off page. Remember I mentioned broken links and intersecting link opportunities already. We could also look at perhaps questionable links. Maybe you get a client, you're like, I've done everything right, and they're still not ranking. What's going on? And then you analyze their links and find out that they hired some company or went to Fiverr and ordered 20,000 links that are all very low quality and very spammy. And Google might pick up that digital footprint and say, looks like you're trying to manipulate our results or game our results. So we're just going to penalize you and lower your rankings because it looks like you're just trying to game the search results. So those questionable links can be a great fix if you identify them. And then creative opportunities. What's something really fun that we can create? For Applebee's, that Veterans Day has gotten us links from like military.com and va.gov. For IHOP, they have their National Pancake Day, and that's a huge thing because they give away pancakes and they help charities. What's the creative thing that we can do? Maybe we can do something simple like scholarship programs or something to attract links to our site. Keyword and content strategy is probably the most time consuming of any of the audits that we do and any of the things that you'll do in inbound marketing. It's a lot of work. You do create this monstrous universe of keywords, and then you have to organize them in a way that's intuitive for a search engine to navigate your website or for a user to understand how your site's organized. It does take a lot of work and a lot of understanding the meaning of words. It was easy for the restaurants, right? Everyone knows what a burger is. But when I did jacuzzis, I didn't know anything about the parts and the components and the features and attributes. I thought, how hard could it be? It's a hot tub. There were a lot of terms I didn't understand. It took time to figure out what they were and organize those into groups that become the pages that become found when people are searching for your products or services. Great. So last one, call me, right? Anything that at all that I can do, if it's just, again, bouncing a question off me, you're troubleshooting something, a student asks you a really difficult question, I'm absolutely here for you. And in that courseware, we do have, Scott and I put a ton of time into making sure that we had lesson plans already built out so that you didn't have to figure out, all right, how am I going to structure this particular module or this week? We've built all those out. So you literally teach it exactly how I teach the class at Cal State Fullerton on the SEO course that I teach there. The presentation slides, are built by both of us, include pictures and case studies and screenshots of things. The quizzes, are fantastic. The glossary goes into as much detail as we can to translate what some of these acronyms, SEO, PPC, all those things mean and how you can utilize them. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed putting it together. It looks like we still have that taxonomy example link down here from the previous slide, but that's okay. So definitely take a look at the courseware. There's a lot of work to do. And if you have questions, if there's something you just want to throw at me, a general SEO question, I got an email yesterday from a potential client from 6 months ago who said, hey, could you solve a tough question for me? And I'm like, as a business owner, I'm like, gee, I should be charging for this. But also as a business owner, I said, hey, I could help this person and continue to build trust with them. So when they're ready to work with me, I can help them. So I'm helping people all day long, small businesses, anything you could think of, I'm here for you. Oh, and please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We do share a lot of podcasts and other great content there as much as we can. And, starting to do a little bit more of those LinkedIn lives here in the next few months. So if you want to jump on those and listen to more geeky SEO content, I'm here for you. And that's it. I think we jump into Q&A, and thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. That was great. That was, your knowledge is so deep in SEO. It's always great to hear. We did have a couple questions come through. Have a few minutes to go through those. So the first one, as a newbie on SEO, how do you get quality backlinks? And I know you touched on it a little bit, just to kind of reiterate, someone new to it, what's like your number one, hey, go here, first place to start?
Yeah, link building is a tough one. It takes a lot of creativity. It really is like a sales job. It's a great question. I mentioned a few ideas. So if you're already working with an existing brand, there's some really easy ways that you can get links. You can find anyone who has mentioned you but not linked to you. There's a tool in Ahrefs that you could use called unlinked mentions, right? You do this little content explorer and you say anyone who's mentioned us but not linking to this domain, highlight those, and you can highlight anyone who does it. And then you go out to them and you say, hey, thanks so much for mentioning us. That really meant a lot. But I don't think your users have a way to learn more about us if they want to. Could you make our name clickable so they can, click our name and visit our website? That way you're not asking for a link. I think in digital marketing, we have link request burnout, right? We're just, this guy's wanting a link. This person's wanting a link. So I think that's an easy way to do it if you're working with an existing brand, is start with unlinked mentions. The next one I mentioned was the broken link example. The intersecting links, get links where competitors have them, put you at the center of that semantic web or that link graph, so that Google thinks you're the dominant brand because you have links where all the competitors have links and then some. Don't be out in left field and get a link from Uncle Joe's auto shop. Instead, get the links where the competitors have them. We have a guide too. If you want to tag me after the session today, one of the things that we put together is an outreach guide, and the outreach guide has 4 different areas. Area number 1 is reference. So it's reaching out and collaborating with other brands to get them to reference something that we did. We did something like that recently. Last year, we did a study of 300 location pages, and from that, we were able to do some outreach and say, hey, we did this really cool thing. Check it out. If you like it, you're more than welcome to borrow any of the content if you'd like to. And in doing that, even without even asking for a link, many of them, like WebPro News and other big websites, linked to this research that we did. Pretty neat way to do it. But that was number 1, is to get them to reference. Number 2 is to do some cross promoting. So you work with a vertical brand and say, hey, let's help each other do something, to increase visibility. Perhaps we can do a post that ties in your product into what our product does, or service into what our service does. Share some data that only we know about our customers. If you're Apple and you offer up a post to another brand like Microsoft and say, hey, we'd love to do a post and share what the top 3 downloaded apps are on iPhones, Microsoft will be like, that's great content. Let's put it on our blog. Yeah. So doing some of that cross promotion work. Contribution is another thing. So if you find that there are some sites out there, news sites, blogs, and they're not talking about something that you're really good at, or they are, but not at a level that you can do it, offer up free writing. I think if you search for how to rank in Google Maps, I've got an article on Bright Local that shows up like number 6 or 7. And I just contributed content. And I said, here, let me write this up for you, and it'll drive traffic for you and hopefully help me build brand awareness. And the last one would be sponsorship. So you're kind of got to be careful with this one, because you don't want Google to think you're purchasing links, but sponsoring an industry event, sponsoring something in your community, anything where there's going to be traffic, where it's going to attract links of its own, and hopefully where it's relevant to your business. So I would say, those are kind of the 4 approach types that I would use as you start your link building journey, right? Is that reference, cross promotion, contribution, and sponsorship.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank
Person's
you.
like, why did I ask?
No, that's great.
Sorry.
So how do you, in the courses you teach, how do you evaluate students' SEO knowledge?
Sure.
When you
I actually like to have them do the actual SEO work. So we have a couple of fun things that we do, and the exercises are in the courseware. Examples would be, here's a workbook with Google Ads search term data and display data, and here's some Search Console data. Take all of these different tabs of data that we've pulled, and take this first tab, which has attributes for our page: title, URL, heading, subheadings, image names, right? And do your optimization. And so they take all that data and they create suggestions on what that page should contain to be optimized for SEO, including a preview of what the title and description would look like. So the exercises themselves of going through and optimizing content. The other thing that we have them do is physically go through and install analytics in on a WordPress website, for at least for my San Diego classes. So I have them actually do the work, and then I go in to see how they did and give them suggestions, or wipe the site and start over if they deleted the whole template or something. So I'm very, very, very hands-on. So it makes it really easy to know whether they're learning or not, because just by them delivering anything, I know that they got in and they started playing with the tools, playing with analytics, playing with WordPress, playing with tracking codes. The other thing is, of course, quizzes. And the quizzes are built in a way so that you know when they've completed the quiz whether they understood the content or not, based on which answers they chose. Because they're not really trick questions, but there's some in there where you read it or you didn't by how you answered. What's the other thing that we do to really measure success, or to know that they're doing it? I do a lot of feedback in discussion groups. What was your favorite thing that you learned this week? I start all my courses with what's one area that you really want to explore the most in this class, so that way I can cater it a bit toward what their interests are. And at the end, you ask the question of, what did you learn or like the most, and what were you challenged with? Just asking some of those questions gives you a pretty good insight as to whether they learn the content or not. But that was a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think we have time for maybe one more here, and this is a great one, I think. How do you think SEO will be different in the next 5 years, and how do you stay current with all the changes and updates?
Sure, I get that. I get that a lot. There's a controversial topic around the automation of content, right? There's Jarvis and all these tools that are coming out that enable you to put in a set of words, and then it generates content for you based on what other pages have. And I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think that's measurable enough for you to understand if it's helping your users or not. I don't think the automation of SEO is going to make it go anywhere. The way I always answer it is, hey, as long as there's a search box on a website and somebody's not showing up in it, we'll always have jobs. And those search boxes are evolving to voice assistants and Google Assistant and Alexa and Cortana, and there's so many different devices. I think 180 voice-enabled devices are being shipped per minute around the world right now. So voice is definitely going to continue to take over some of the share of how we search, but we're still going to be using phones. We're still going to be using desktops and laptops. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Principle-based, again, if our content solves the problem that the user is searching for, not just the query they punched in, and we're getting more visibility off the website because our content is so helpful and referenceable, and we're continuously making sure that our result stands out in the search results by exploring all the different structured data that you could be using from Google's rich results gallery. Write that one down, rich results gallery. You can Google that. And continuously testing. As long as you're focused on those 3 areas, we're relevant, we're popular, and we're helpful. If we're doing that consistently and using that as deciding moment when somebody says, I want to try a tactic, you can say tactics are okay, but where does it fall into these 3 areas? Well, it's more of a hack. Well, let's focus on principle-based SEO, so we don't need hacks. I think if you focus on that, it's like comparing fashion to style, right? If you have a style of doing things and that's your style, and you develop it and you nurture it and you grow it in the way that any major brand would, you don't need to worry about fashion and the trendiness of what happens in fashion. I think you'll stand the test of time.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So I think we're about out of time. There's one more quick one that came through from Amanda that was curious about what microphone you're using. Your voice is just perfect. And maybe it's just that.
Wow.
Maybe the microphone. There you go.
I also have a Shure over here that's a fun one to play with, but this is the one I've been using lately. It's the Blue Yeti.
Yeah, and I think you can get those for about around
$100 bucks. Yeah, cheap.
So. Awesome.
Can I leave you with one more quote? When we think about anything digital marketing, whether it's SEO or otherwise, my favorite quote is always Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn, the speaker, not the sports broadcaster, said that you don't have to do extraordinary things to be successful. You only have to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. And when it comes to digital marketing, if we're doing ordinary things extraordinarily well and not trying to find workarounds and hacks and lazy routes and quick fixes, but instead building a solid foundation and growing it, you're going to be successful. And it is a long journey, right? I mentioned 6 months to a year for most brands and up to 2 years for competitive keywords. Set that expectation out the gate, and I think you've set yourself up for success. So thanks again for having me, and I'm available if you have any questions after the event.